Strange, isn't it? How the air changes when the quiet stops pretending. You can feel it in your bones, in that sharp little pause where the world doesn't know whether to laugh or hold its breath. That's the moment nobody prepares you for. The second everything they built, every dismissal, every smirk, every time they acted like you didn't exist, collapses in silence, not because you shouted, not because you begged, but because someone finally stood. And when that happens, it's not just a gesture, it's a rupture. A break in the system they swore was unshakable. The air doesn't feel familiar anymore. The faces don't look the same anymore. Everything you once thought was stable suddenly tilts, like the ground itself doesn't want to carry the old version of you. That's when it begins. That's when the game stops being theirs and starts being yours. So let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt it? That instant when the room turned on its head, when one act of defiance, one small spark of loyalty made everything unrecognizable. Think about it and tell me, are you ready to see what happens when silence breaks in your favor? It's never really about standing. It's about refusing to kneel anymore. That's the twist they never see coming. One moment you're background noise, safe, contained, ignored. The next, someone leans forward, places their weight beside yours, and suddenly the rules they worshipped begin to tremble. Recognition isn't a handshake. It's not polite applause, it's rebellion in its purest form. It shatters their carefully drawn lines. It poisons their illusion of control. And here's the secret, they always feared it. They feared that the moment someone noticed you, the fragile balance they built would crack like glass. That fear is why they mocked you, why they pushed you to the edges. Because as long as you were unseen, they were safe. But the instant someone places their faith in you, their safety dissolves. Their silence betrays them. Their smiles start to look rehearsed. Recognition is dangerous because it spreads. It moves like smoke through a locked room, seeping under doors, crawling into lungs. People don't even know they've breathed it in until it's too late. Suddenly the thought they tried to bury, maybe you matter more than they admitted, becomes impossible to escape. And once that thought infects the room, everything shifts. Everything they believed about who you were becomes unrecognizable. So understand this: when someone stands for you, it isn't just support. It's mutiny. It's the first domino tipping against the empire that kept you small. And once that first piece falls, no one can stop the collapse. Not them, not their rules, not even you. Power doesn't break gently. It snaps. Loud, sudden, like a bone you thought was unshakable, until the sound echoes and you realize it was fragile all along. That's what happens when someone dares to stand for you. Control fractures. Authority that once looked untouchable begins to bleed through its cracks. And everyone feels it, the shift in the air, the nervous shuffle in their steps, the way voices lose their confidence mid-sentence. Because control is never real. It's theater, a performance they convince you to buy into. They sit higher, they speak louder. They write the rules as if the paper can't burn. But the truth, it was always smoke and mirrors. The second loyalty shifts, even slightly, the whole stage tilts. The audience senses it, the actors panic. And suddenly the show isn't theirs anymore. It's slipping. It's crumbling. The fracture doesn't just expose weakness, it exposes desperation. Watch closely when it happens. The ones who claim strength will claw for approval. The ones who acted calm will choke on their own urgency. They'll reach. They'll scramble. They'll do anything to stitch the illusion back together. But illusions don't heal. Once broken, they stay broken. And in that moment you realize something terrifying and liberating. Their power never existed without your silence. Their dominance only worked as long as you believed it was real. Now, you've seen through it. And once you've seen through it, you can never unsee it again. Support has a strange way of pulling masks off. The second someone dares to align with you, the room changes shape. Faces that once smiled at you begin to twitch. Voices that once dripped with false kindness turn brittle. Loyalty exposes truth in a way nothing else can. Because when someone stands for you, those who never planned to can't hide anymore. Their silence becomes a confession, their hesitation, a betrayal written in plain sight. And here's the thing, people wear masks not to protect themselves, but to keep you blind. They laugh when you're weak, not because they enjoy it, but because it hides their fear of you becoming strong. They play neutral when you fight alone, not out of wisdom, but out of cowardice. The moment you're no longer isolated, those masks start slipping, and beneath them you see everything. The envy, the doubt, the secret wish that you would never rise. Support exposes allegiances. It paints the room in sharper colors. Those who stand with you glow. Those who stand against you rot in their own shadows. And those who claim to stand nowhere reveal themselves as the most dangerous of all, because neutrality in the face of your rise isn't peace. It's betrayal waiting for its moment. So watch them closely. When someone stands for you, don't just look at the one who rose. Look at the ones who froze. That's where the truth lives. That's where the real unmasking happens. Every silence leaves an echo. It lingers, it burns. The ones who never stood for you carry it like a stain they can't wash off. They'll tell themselves they had reasons. They'll dress their cowardice as wisdom, their hesitation as strategy. But deep down in the quiet hours they never speak of, they choke on the truth they abandoned you. They watched you drown and convinced themselves the water was shallow. That echo never leaves them. Doubt is a parasite. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It crawls into their thoughts late at night. What if I chose wrong? What if I stood with the wrong side? What if I underestimated them? And the more you rise, the louder that parasite grows. They can't stop replaying the moment they should have stood, the moment they could have mattered. And now, it's gone. For you, doubt transforms into clarity. You see who faltered. You see who stayed silent when the air begged for courage. And that clarity is priceless, because loyalty isn't measured by the cheers when you win. It's measured by the silence when you're cornered. And their silence spoke louder than any applause. So remember this. The echoes of their doubt will follow them forever. But for you, that same silence becomes fuel. Proof that you never needed their approval to rise. Proof that the ones who hesitated will live haunted by the sound of their own inaction. Fear wears disguise. It rarely shows itself in open screams. It hides in shaky laughter, in voices that speak too quickly, in eyes that avoid yours the second they realize you're no longer invisible. When someone stood for you, it wasn't just recognition. It was a signal. A flare in the dark, and that signal forced them to feel what they buried for years. Fear of losing control. They don't fear who you are right now. No, they fear who you'll become if this momentum grows. They fear the possibility that the weak one they dismissed could rise above them. That fear is raw, almost animal. It twists their stomach, it steals their sleep, and you can see it in their every move. Their sudden flattery, their nervous distance, their desperate attempts to keep you contained. Fear doesn't lie. It's the most honest language people speak. You want to know who feels threatened. Don't listen to their words. Watch their patterns. Watch the way they scramble when your name enters the room. That's the anatomy of fear. It's not in what they say, but in what they can't hide. And the beauty of it, their fear isn't your burden, it's your lever. It proves you've shifted the ground beneath them. It proves you've become more than they ever calculated. And once that proof is out in the open, they can never bury it again. One moment changes everything. One act of recognition, one shift in the air, and suddenly, you are not the same. The reflection in the mirror doesn't look familiar anymore. The labels they stitched onto you, weak, replaceable, forgettable, fall apart. And in their place, something unrecognizable begins to form. That's the mutation of identity. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for applause. It rewrites you in real time. At first it feels strange, uncomfortable, like wearing a skin that isn't yours. You wonder if it's too much, if you're truly ready to step into the weight that's just been placed on your shoulders. But that doubt, it fades, because every second you hold the new version of yourself, you feel the old one dying quietly in the corner. The overlooked version, the background character, gone, and they see it too. They can't explain it, but they know something in you has shifted. Your silence feels heavier. Your presence feels sharper. Every glance, every movement now carries a weight they can't ignore. That's the terror. They realize you are no longer who you were yesterday. You've mutated into something beyond their control. And once identity mutates, there's no going back. You don't shrink into the old box. You don't play the old role. You don't accept the old rule. Because the truth is simple: the moment they stood for you, they didn't just recognize you, they created someone new. Rage is a strange thing. People tell you it's destructive, that it burns, ruins, leaves nothing behind but ash. But they don't understand. Rage can be blueprint. Every slight, every dismissal, every smirk that cut too deep, those aren't scars, they're bricks. And when you stack them right, they build something no hand can tear down. Rage, when focused, doesn't destroy. It creates. Think about it. That heat in your chest, that ache in your teeth when you bite back words, that's raw material. The kind empires are built from. Because nothing is more dangerous than a person who has turned pain into structure, who has turned rejection into fuel. That's what they never saw coming. They thought your silence was defeat. They never realized you were sketching, planning, carving your rise in the dark. When they finally stood for you, it didn't just validate you, it ignited the architecture you had been building all along. Suddenly, the frame of who you are towered over them, and every ounce of rage they mocked became the steel holding it together. Rage doesn't make you reckless. It makes you deliberate, precise, unstoppable. So let them call it anger. Let them call it madness. What they'll never understand is that rage isn't the end of you, it's the beginning. It's the foundation. And every time you rise, they'll be forced to watch as the empire they tried to bury you under becomes the empire you now rule. Watch their eyes. Panic doesn't lie, it leaks through the smallest cracks. The sudden shift in their tone, the forced grin that doesn't reach their face, the way their hands fidget when your name cuts through the air. They'll try to mask it. They'll laugh louder, speak faster, pretend nothing has changed. But you'll see it twitch. That hesitation, that is proof. Proof that your rise is real. Proof that they feel it before you even announce it. Panic is the body's confession. It betrays what words try to cover. And when someone stood for you, that confession spread like wildfire. Every person who once dismissed you is now recalculating, remeasuring, rethinking their stance. Some will rush to align themselves, desperate not to be left behind. Others will retreat, pretending indifference. But their silence will scream louder than any shout. The irony, their panic validates you more than their praise ever could. Because fear doesn't waste its time on the irrelevant. Fear only bends for what it cannot control. And in that moment you become uncontrollable. That's the shift they dread. The realization that the script no longer belongs to them. The story is being rewritten and they're no longer holding the pen. So don't fear their panic. Embrace it. Let it echo in their every move. Because panic is proof you've entered their world of nightmares. Proof that they'll never again know comfort in your present. Proof that you've become the variable they can't erase. The stage doesn't stay empty for long. It shifts. It bends. And tonight it bent for you. For years you were the shadow in the corner, watched, mocked, underestimated. But the second someone stood for you, the lights tilt. The crowd that once stared past you now turns their necks. The whispers change direction. The silence grows heavier. This is the exchange. The moment when power transfers without a handshake, without permission, without ceremony. One gesture was enough to flip the script. And suddenly the seat they swore you'd never touch feels warm beneath you. They'll pretend it's temporary. They'll tell themselves it's nothing. But deep inside they know stages don't return once they shift. Once the spotlight lands, it burns a permanent mark. And here's the part they'll never admit. The same people who mocked you are now performing for you. Their smiles are rehearsed, their compliments calculated, their presence forced. They're no longer the actors, they're the audition. They're scrambling to prove their worth, while you stand calm, silent, unshaken. The exchange doesn't need noise. It doesn't need applause. It just needs the quiet truth that everyone feels but no one dares to say. The stage is no longer theirs. It's yours. And the scariest part for them, you didn't beg for it. You didn't fight for it. It was given because it couldn't be denied anymore. Loyalty doesn't scream. It doesn't announce itself with flags or songs. It whispers. It shows up in the smallest moments, the ones no one else noticed. When the room went cold, when the air thickened with judgment, someone still stood beside you. No hesitation, no excuses, just presence. That's loyalty. That's the kind of bond money can't buy, threats can't break, and time can't fade. And look closely, loyalty isn't crowded. It isn't found in the circle that claps the loudest when you win. It's hidden in the few who sit through the silence, who carry your name without needing an audience, who stand tall when standing beside you. Cost them everything. That's when you know the difference between allies and actors. It's strange, isn't it? The very ones you thought would never leave vanish first. And the ones you doubted, they stay, they hold the line. They don't need a spotlight. They don't need recognition. They need only you. And that's where the truth slices deeper than betrayal ever could. Loyalty doesn't grow in the crowd. It grows in the dark. And when it reveals itself, it changes the game. Suddenly you're not just one. You're multiplied. You're heavier. You're undeniable. The world can take its aim, but the bullet won't break what was forged in silence. That's the kind of loyalty they'll never understand, because it doesn't bend, it doesn't sell, it doesn't fade. Silence isn't weakness. It isn't retreat. It's a weapon. And when you've mastered it, the world doesn't know whether to fear you or pity themselves, because silence doesn't explain. It doesn't defend. It doesn't justify. It leaves them drowning in their own imagination, fighting shadows of their guilt, their envy, their betrayal. And that silence, that's what breaks them harder than words ever could. Think about it. Every time you stayed quiet, they thought you were finished. Every time you didn't answer, they celebrated your defeat. But silence was never surrender. It was calculate. It was you sharpening edges they couldn't see. You weren't hiding. You were preparing. And when silence ended, when you finally moved, everything shifted. Everything became unrecognizable. But silence carries a price. It makes the weak restless. It makes the fake reveal themselves. The ones who couldn't handle your quiet walked away. The ones who stayed, they became iron. They became proof that your silence wasn't emptiness. It was strength. That price, it's worth it. Every single time. And here's the truth they'll never admit. Your silence exposed. Without you speaking a word, their masks slipped. Their loyalty cracked. Their pride screamed. All while you stood calm, unshaken, untouchable. That's the price of silence. It doesn't cost you, it costs